Hey, good morning, Eastern Oregon, and welcome to this December 19th version of AM Live on EOA. Your connection to Eastern Oregon, and we are on the EOA network. How are you, man?
Morning. Second Monday.
Second Monday. And it feels like a Monday. We had technical issues getting out of the gate, but hopefully we overcame. So,
I mean, we're here, so
we're here. Yeah,
I
haven't turned on my Facebook feed to check our audio, but hopefully we're good. Yeah. So, yeah, how are things, man?
Good. It's already the 19th, less than a week, and in less than 2 weeks it'll be. We'll be adding that 4 onto the end of the.
I got Tanya's present. That's for me. That's like a marker. At least succeeded.
Do you normally not do it?
No, I I normally do, but I feel good when I finally get it.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. Because she does so much for all of us, and for me, it's like, it's one I kind of got to get right. Hopefully.
All right.
Yeah. So
I'm not a huge present dude, so it's like for me, it's like, whatever. It is what it is. I've always just been like more show up for, like the way I show people that is by being there for them. You know what I mean? Like that's.
Yeah. Do you like opening presents on Christmas Day though?
No.
It's not important.
I haven't opened a present on Christmas Day since I've been married, probably.
Yeah. What about like when you get a present, like on your birthday? Do you get presents at all anymore? No?
Not really. No, I mean my mom insists on giving us money, but that's it, really. I mean the kids will give me a card or something, but yeah.
That's true. I don't.
Not a
I
big
guess
present dude.
I mean, I guess I can't think of the last time. I mean, it was probably when grandkids got me something for Christmas or something. Yeah.
I mean, if the kids might give me a little something, but I don't expect it by any means.
Yeah.
No. I got a cookie tray, and contaminated fudge that I brought to your house. Just because I don't do peppermint. And she mixed all 3 of them together.
It was contaminated with peppermint.
Yeah, because there was nut fudge, there was regular fudge, there was peppermint. And she put all 3 of them in the same bag.
Yeah.
But I can't really complain.
Yeah. Well, I've been working on it. I don't know. I still don't have a pepper. I haven't gotten to a real peppermint one.
There's definitely pepper. I could just even the smell of peppermint, I can't do it.
Really?
I don't like that. I don't like peppermint.
Yeah.
Nope. I don't like candy canes. I don't like any of that.
You have a pretty good list of things that are like, no, not going to.
Tomatoes, peppermint. Pretty much.
Is that it?
Well, I can't eat avocados. I would love to.
Okay.
But.
You're like allergic to them or something?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, it's something to do with a vinyl, or a latex allergy. There's something that's in avocados that is
interesting.
Similar to latex. I don't know what it is, but it can be in. I really shouldn't eat watermelon either. Like there's like something in watermelon that starts that whole process of. It always starts like with like your mouth itching, but then it escalates sometimes. And avocado escalates to like swelling. Oh, and I'm allergic to sulfa drugs, too. I almost died from sulfa.
Really?
Yeah. I had a strep throat, and they gave me sulfonamides. And it took like till a week after I was done with the prescription for it to the adverse effects. I was in the hospital. I had a temperature over 105 for 3 days. Up and down. You know what I mean? Like they couldn't get. Just pumping me full of prednisone. I was hallucinating. It was kind of scary.
It's funny. I heard a story recently about an older couple. He had been a farmer. He was a farmer. Is a farmer. Had been a farmer his whole life, and he got stung by a bee, and had no idea how allergic he was to them. Yeah, I mean, and had it not been for some quick thinking medical personnel, he probably would have died right
I'm mildly, like I'll get a big swell. The last time I was bottling cider out at my buddy's farm, and I got stung, and my arm swelled up. Nothing some Benadryl won't help though. Some sort of antihistamine, right? Just start popping Benadryl pills and hopefully you make it. I did go to the hospital for that one though, because I didn't know that. You know what I mean? I had no idea. I hadn't been stung in a bee in by a bee in so long. I had no idea. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, and it swelled like it looked like a Popeye muscle.
Huh.
So they draw that line. You know what I mean? They draw a line around it.
Oh, do
the
they?
area,
And then
and they say if it gets, if
if
goes,
the circle gets bigger, then that
then
kind
you
of
need to come back.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you want to do sports?
Let's do it.
All right, take it away.
AM Sports Report brought to you by Hobby Habit right here in the Grand 411 First Street. Go check them out. Joe and his team are doing a great job. They've redone the inside of that building. It looks awesome in there. All new, updated stuff for hobbies, from Traxxas RC cars, Magic the Gathering cards, to Legos. They have advent calendars. It's a little late for that, but I mean, you can still have an advent calendar for a few days. Yeah, my niece Jane, she has the Disney advent calendar, and every day you get a little toy, a little figure from Disney, and she can name every single one of them. She carries that bag around with her. So yeah, go check out Hobby Habit here in LeGrand, 411 First Street, just for the fun of it. EOU men's basketball got their first 2 conference wins of the season this weekend over Multnomah and Warner Pack. Thank goodness. These wins bring them to 2-3 in the CCC and 3-7 overall. They're currently in Temple Terrace, Florida for the next few days. They're going to take on University of Fort Lauderdale tomorrow, and then Florida College on Thursday, and then they're off until the 30th when they open the CCC home part of their schedule right here at Quinn on the 30th of December against C of I. Big game. C of I think, is ranked number 5 now in the country. They spanked us in over there. They beat us by 30. And
oh man!
So we need some redemption there. I think anytime we can beat a Kobe Blaine coached College of Idaho team, I will be happy. The women, they got 2 conference wins this weekend too. Multnomah and Warner Pack, which was big. That was their first 2 conference wins of the year. They're 6-3 overall, 2-3 in the CCC. They're off for all of Christmas break, so they're done until the 30th when they host C of I at Quinn as well. Those games are, I believe, 1 and 4. So get up there and check them out at the end of Christmas break. Nothing better to do. Go watch some EOU basketball. EOU men's wrestling won both their duels over the weekend, beating MSU Northern 21-18 and Wayland Baptist 33-7. Senior Kyle Knutson he was the only EOU men's wrestler that placed at the Reno Tournament of Champions on Sunday. He ended up getting 6th place, which is, that's a huge tournament with a lot of people. That's really, great job by Kyle there. They're off until January 5th when they head to Arizona for 3 dual meets over 2 days, conference dual meets. The CCC in wrestling is weird because there's teams all over. There's Arizona teams, there's Canada, there's Montana, there's Oregon, there's a lot of traveling in wrestling because not all the schools have teams, so you got to go a little bit further. Over the weekend, Irma Rotano for EOU women's wrestling was the only Mountie to place in the Women's West Coast Tournament of Champions. She brought home a 4th place medal. They won't compete again until January 5th in the NWCA National Duels in Cedar Falls, Iowa. LeGrand boys wrestling had 3 placers at Tri-State over the weekend. Ridge Kerr, Tommy Belding, and Bragan Anderson, with Bragan Anderson bringing home a 2nd place medal. This is by far, I would say, LeGrand's toughest tournament of the year. Tri-State is huge. The Tigers, we all know how good LeGrand is at wrestling, and they placed 14th. So Think about that. They were the 14th best team at this tournament. So that's the kind of quality that this tournament brings to the table. You got Idaho, Washington, Oregon. It's called Tri-State, but there's also Montana too. So there's actually four states represented, but it's called Tri-State, and it's definitely the most toughest tournament LeGrand will be in all year by far. So EOU men's basketball, they got those 2 wins, and it puts them in a position where hope's not lost. It's still kind of frustrating though from a fan point of view. Like, the recruiting was really good. We brought in some really good dudes, and we're just not there. And maybe it's going to take a half of a season, hopefully a half of a season, to get there. But I want to see us. We were picked to finish in the top 5 in the conference. Last year we were number 2.
Oh, wow.
And the only team that was better than us was an undefeated C of I team that won the national championship in our conference. And this year we're just not quite there yet. Hopefully this Christmas break and this trip and just kind of reset the batteries for these guys, and maybe we'll shock C of I on the 30th. That would be awesome. Anyways, morning sports report brought to you by Hobby Habit, 411 First Street in LeGrand, just for the fun of it.
So the coach at C of I,
Yeah, I can't stand him.
not one of your
He's
favorite
a
people?
whiny. I seen him kick our score table one game, stomping his foot. The game we beat them here when they were top 10,
Yeah.
he literally kicked the score table and stomped like a little 12-year-old kid having a hissy fit at the refs.
Yeah.
And we've had him on the Johnny Ballgame show before.
Yeah.
We did a show from C of I.
Oh, I remember
Remember?
that. Yeah, yeah.
And he was one of our guests.
Yeah.
And nah, not a fan. I don't care if you win the national championship. I don't care if you walk and you turn the ground to gold. When you act like that in a sporting event, like
Yeah.
you're supposed to be a role model for these young men, and you're out there kicking the scores table and stomping. No,
So what do you think of
get out of here.
what do you think of all of the celebrations now in sports?
It's me personally. It's not
Yeah.
my style, but
Yeah.
I'm not against it.
Yeah.
Do what you do.
It's just
It's
so
not my style. Like I was never a big.
Yeah,
celebrator.
it's just so distracting. I mean, it's just I don't mind a high five or
There's always been celebrating.
I don't mind something, but like when they turn it into like they've got a little act or they've got a little thing or and it's funny because now everybody's getting into it. I mean, so a defensive lineman gets a good tackle. Yeah, I mean it's like, dude, it's like okay,
Hey, I'm not anti it. It's not. I wouldn't do it personally. It's just not really my style. But
Yeah.
I'm not anti it. I think
yeah.
why not?
And the other thing is, and I made a personal post about this. Stealing the ball. That's like I mean,
Stealing the ball. I'm confused.
yeah, I mean it's a regular routine to try and steal the football. I mean it's not
Strip
or punch
it?
it out, strip it out. Yeah.
You're taught that. That's
Yeah.
part of football.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah,
I wasn't taught
as
that.
a defensive player, you are taught to strip the ball.
I was not taught that.
100%.
Yeah.
BC, you're wrong.
Yeah. Well,
It's part of football.
no, it's not. Well, clearly it is.
Okay,
a
so
part,
wait,
no,
you're saying
no, hang on.
a defensive player isn't
no.
taught to take the ball away from the offensive player?
Clearly, it is a part of football.
You're taught it.
I was never taught
Well, then you must have played like 1A football in Tillamook, Alaska.
that. Yeah. Oh, I know. It's terrible.
Well, I will argue that until you ask anybody in the football world if defensive players are taught to take the football away from the offense, and they will say 100% of the time.
So go back. So do you?
Every time you're tackling, you should be ripping, trying to get that ball out. Every time.
Okay. So you ready for me to ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay. How come we don't see stripping plays from Super Bowl 8, 9, 10, 12?
I'm
I mean,
sure the guys
no,
are going
tell
for
me
the
why
football.
don't we? If it's always been a part of
It
football,
always has.
Why don't we see stripping plays from?
I'm not going to argue.
Yeah, no.
It's a mute point. It really is. Like you talk to anybody in the sports world, especially in football.
Well,
It's always been a part of the game.
okay.
As a
And so
defensive
then
player,
answer the
you're taught
question
to try
again.
to take
If
the
it's
ball.
always been a part of the football,
I can't answer it because I haven't watched all those Super Bowls.
right?
I'm sure
but I mean,
I'm
and
sure
I
they
have,
were trying to get
I
the
have.
ball.
I mean, I'm just saying. I've been watching football a lot of years, and I'm sure that it is a part of the game now. But it has not always
has
been a part.
It always has been. You've always been taught to try to get the ball from the other team.
I played.
The only way you score points is by having the ball. So why wouldn't you teach your defensive guys to get the ball?
You
from
know,
the other
I don't.
team?
I guess I don't. Yeah, I still think it's cheap. It's cheap football. It ruins the game for me. Yeah.
Wow,
So
that's confusing to me.
yeah.
Because, like, seriously, like, if you talk to anybody, I mean, we'll even ask Paul when he gets on here.
That's
he's
a
not
good
even
idea.
a football dude, I don't think. But
Yeah.
he probably knows that you're taught to take
Well,
the ball.
hey.
from
So
the
if
other
you
team.
guys are out there and you have a comment,
yeah, back me up because I know I'm right.
of course you know you're right.
Well, this time I am.
Yeah. Well, please go back, Mr. Sports Guy, and find some stripping plays from
I'm
the
sure
70s
there are. I'm
or
sure
80s.
there are.
go find some. I'm sure
I'm
they're
gonna-
out there. Go find some.
On Thursday, I'm gonna have a whole reel of them for you.
Yeah.
So
how about let's say from
you said 70s and 80s?
okay. Oh well, I'll even give you more. Let's say from the 90s and older.
So 99 all the way back.
No, 90s, like 89, 90 back.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
How many do I need for you to say, you know what, Kyle, you're right?
Well, I don't.
10?
Yeah, if you can find 10.
10?
If you can find 5.
10 plays where they strip the ball.
Well, I mean, and the point is not whether they did. The point that I'm trying to make is this, which I think that probably the whole world out there is getting, but you might be ignoring, is that it certainly is a part of the game, but it has not always been a part of the game. I mean, the teaching, active stripping part of it has not always been a part of the game. I've been watching football a lot of years, okay? And it certainly is now a glorified thing. And it wasn't. I don't recall it being that 20 years ago. So.
That's all. I mean, 20 years ago, I played, and we were taught that. I played 25 years ago. How old am I? 97? 26 years ago.
Yeah.
I was taught to always try to take the ball from the other player.
Yeah.
By any means necessary, including punching, grabbing, ripping, clawing, however you could get the ball.
Yeah.
Seriously. I was taught that.
Yeah.
I mean, Todd Gorham. In high school in 1983, we were taught to strip the ball. Weird.
All right.
I mean, I'm going to say that I'm going to find 10, BC. I really am. Because maybe it's not talked about as much. I don't know. But I do know that like my knowledge of football, that's always been part of your job as a defender.
And certainly Todd is a very credible football person. Okay.
Yeah.
But I guess there is, and certainly the things that you teach on the football field are different than what's glorified by the announcers on TV. Okay. And that's what I've noticed. Okay. Is that now it's just a very common part of the glorification process. I don't think that has always been the process.
Here's what I think. Here's my take on it. I think that you're noticing it more nowadays because the athletes are bigger, faster, and stronger, and they're more technical. And it sticks out more because these guys do it repetitively over. There's the difference between an athlete today and in 1983. Right?
Well, and I agree.
40 years. This guy today is bigger, he's faster, he's stronger, but he's also like the training is more specific. So I think you just notice it more today. Like you notice guys in there ripping, doing certain techniques because the training is more specific.
And visibly, we have better replays, we have better slow motion, we have better.
In 1973, you might not be able to have that angle where you see the guy grabbing the ball.
Right, and I agree with that. It's just, I don't know. I just think it's, anyhow, it doesn't matter. I just think like when you have a receiver who like makes an incredible, phenomenal catch, and and he's caught the ball, he's secured it, he's on his way down, and then it just gets punched out at the last minute. So it's a completed pass, and then it gets punched out.
As long as he makes a football move.
Yeah.
So once you catch it, you have to make a football move.
I'm just saying. Yeah. I mean, no, I understand the sequence. And
well, see, me personally, I never played receiver, but I know that like back in the days.
Yeah.
Like Todd says it right here. Here's part of it right here too. It was more important for the defensive guy to blast that guy in the next week than it was to take the ball because that was just part of it was more important in football back then. And B, the ball might come out anyways. So as a receiver, if I was ever a receiver, I'd much rather have somebody reaching in there trying to get the ball and having to hold it than somebody blasting me.
It's just the shitty part of it. It's just as far as I'm concerned, it's like it's not. I don't know. I just think that it's like just make the tackle. I mean, the guy caught the ball, he received it. It was incredible. You got beat, and so now because you got beat, you're doing everything that you can.
The flip of that is hold on to the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something offensive players are taught.
Right. No,
I mean,
and
you
I
see
do.
guys walking around
Right.
school when they fumbled,
Yeah.
walking around school holding the ball with their teammates trying to strip the ball from them.
And I certainly remember those drills where the running backs would run right
Yeah,
through
the
the gauntlet of the players, and people would try and strip it out. So, all right. Well, hey, we've like burned up.
Half the show.
So hey, let's look at the weather real quick outside. It's what it is.
Windy.
Then give us the weather
windy.
forecast, Benny.
It's crappy and windy. It's
Yeah.
warmer today. 43.
Yeah. So when we don't have something to talk about, I should just save those little nuggets to get you all riled up.
Oh, just wait till Thursday when I have a whole highlight reel for you.
All right. Cool. Well, you can come back to us, Bennett. Yeah. We're going to have Commissioner Paul Anders is going to be with us right after this. We'll be right back. All right, we're back with Commissioner Paul Anders. All right, so what do you think about the stealing of the football? Stripping.
I'm on Team
stripping.
Dodsey.
You're on Team
100%.
Dodsey? All right.
Yep, that was,
So-
again, we were taught that when that was one of the first things. If you were on defense, not only did you key on the ball to know, how to defend, but you went for the ball every single time.
Yeah.
And if you did get a takeaway,
it was a
the
big deal.
best thing you can do on defense is
Yeah.
force a fumble or intercept a ball because you're giving your team an opportunity to score.
Well, and I certainly get. I mean, yeah, when you had a tackle and your helmet was right on the ball, and it popped out as they went down, that was a win-win, So I saw what Todd's saying is so that since you can't lead with your helmet, I mean, they're trying to decrease the amount of impact in tackles, then that's how they're compensating. Is that kind of what he's saying, you think?
No.
No.
No, I think he's saying that people are trying to get the ball more than they're trying to make a hard tackle. Not necessarily like a head
Because
down
they've
tackle.
kind of shifted a little bit.
But in my eyes, I think it's always been super important for defense to get the ball. I mean, that's your above everything else. The ball is you know what I mean? You want the ball because if you have to stay out there on the field 4 plays, right? So 3 downs and a punt. Or you can, on the first play, strip the ball and have the ball right there and not have to return a punt. What would you take?
Well, clearly.
You're taking the ball.
Yeah.
So that's why their defensive players are taught, like, by any means necessary, get that ball. That's why on a fumble, you see that big pile of people and the person on the bottom's getting his fish hooked, getting his eyes gouged, getting his man parts grabbed, and trust me, that's part of football. I mean, any means necessary to get that ball. Fingers, in the pile, you get a hold of somebody's finger, ooh. You better hope somebody. That's why a lot of guys, offensive linemen, will tape their fingers together.
So they can't be.
That way you don't get it caught in a face mask. But in the pile, you're grabbing for anything that you can get, including the ball, and whatever you grab onto is what you grab onto.
Yeah. Hey, Paul, how are you?
I'm well. Yeah, and part of it is I think that it's adaptation to the rule changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I didn't play very long. I was injured fairly young, and my career came to a screeching halt, football. But even now, I'm paying for leading with my head. My neck is so jacked up. Actually, was up at Grand Ronde last week and got an injection in my neck. Your daughter was in the room and taking care of me, and very professional. Great care up there. It was really, really good.
Good.
So hopefully I'm on the mend.
Good, yeah. So, well, good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and it's funny to watch. I mean, not funny, but they're trying to reduce. I mean, you see it in football all the time. They're trying to reduce the impact of players for their own health and stuff. But for the tacklers or for whomever, it's muscle memory. I mean, you've been taught since you were 8 years old or 10 years old how to tackle a particular manner, and so for them to change their style, not lead with their helmet, whatever the case might be.
Yeah, but the guys that are like NFL age now, they've been taught their whole life to heads up tackle. It's been around long enough now that the guys that are in their early 20s, 30s,
well,
they've
apparently,
been taught to keep their heads up and tackle.
Yeah, apparently sometimes they forget.
Well, yeah. Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
so I've just said I don't
think it's forgetting. I think it's just body positioning. You know what I mean? You can't always have your head up when you're tackling somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's just it going out the window. I think they're just in a position where, and some guys do it on purpose. I mean, there are some guys that are still dirty players. They really are, that are doing helmet to helmet. But there's plays where you can clearly see that there was no intention of it being
and you can
head down. You know what I mean?
And
it's
you can see them pull off. That's the thing about it. You know, I mean, that's why I still believe it's muscle memory. They're like in the middle of a tackle, or they're just right there, and then all of a sudden, at the last possible microsecond, they're like pull away. But well, hey, let's shift. How's Union County?
Union County is great. You thinking about coming on this morning? I just thought of all the things that I wanted to visit about and kind of reflecting on the year.
Yeah.
And it's been a pretty good year.
Well, what do you feel good about?
Well, probably most recently is the legislative branch and the executive branch finding the money to plow roads and do maintenance for Oregon Department of Transportation. And that was, a lot of us worked very hard on that, trying to make sure that we had safe roads. We got a lot of good community input and I said, hey, here's the emails. Here's, how you approach, I would approach it. I didn't tell anybody how to do it, but, suggestions. And we had some folks write some really good, strong letters from this area to their legislators and to the governor. I'm really pleased that they were able to get that worked out because when you look at the in my view, the charge of ODOT, safe transportation, and if those fog lines, and maybe not you, but people my age really use the fog lines a lot to make sure that we're staying in our lanes. Cars now, Commissioner Scarfo brought this one up. It goes, some of those cars really can't function very well without a fog line on the road.
So back up just a little bit and tell us what happened. Give us a little bit more of the history of the story.
Okay, so as the second year of the biennium started, we're in the second year of the biennium, and it looked as though Oregon Department of Transportation was going to be significantly short on funding. And there's a couple of reasons for that, in my opinion. One of them, probably most prominent, is they're supported by the gas tax, much like our Public Works Road Department is supported by the gas tax. And all the gas tax is paid, there's a split on it. 50% goes to the state, 30% goes to the counties, and then 20% goes to cities. So a 50, 30, 20 split is what they call it. Well, they realized that they were going to be short, so they started cutting things. In Eastern Oregon, one of them was the plowing of snow and de-icing and things like that. And then the other was maintenance, which includes fog line striping, some road repairs, things like that. But the leadership in the legislature, and I will tell you, we have a really strong advocate in Senator Steiner from Portland, and she's been to Eastern Oregon recently, and we've had some pretty serious discussions on a number of topics, and she really advocated to make sure that we had the fund, or ODOT had the funding to be able to carry on those roles.
And so and I had heard that somewhere along the line that part of the funding was going to allow for it to be plowed once a day. Is that an extreme?
I heard that multiple times.
Okay.
And I sat through meetings, and that never came out of those meetings.
Yeah.
I think that was the interpretation by some folks.
But the bottom
was
line was that
a reduction in services.
a reduction of plowing of roads.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's not just that. Is that primarily the interstate or state highways?
State highways for the most part. Yeah, I mean, we planned on Union County roads plowing the way that we have.
Right.
And there is a method to what we do in Union County. If you go on our website, it talks about how we prioritize what roads. It's not because we like you. It's not because someone important lives on that road.
Right.
There is a very specific hierarchy of roads and how they get plowed and why and when, not how, but when they get plowed. And public safety, transportation, school bus routes in particular are high on the list.
So the state plows the interstate.
Correct.
What other roads in Union County does the state, would that have impacted?
For example, well, not for example. Here they are. The Union Highway.
Okay.
Highway 30 is state responsibility. Cove Highway. Union to North Powder, because that's a state highway as well. Island City, actually LeGrand to Island City to Imbler to Elgin, and then up the branch one way, and then over Tollgate the other way. That's all their responsibility.
Okay. All right. And so I guess what the question I had was like, how did they land on that decision thinking it wasn't going to impact us in a major way? Do they not know we get snow over here? I mean, yeah.
I can't answer that. I don't know I can't speak to their thought process. And I think if I did, I would probably get myself into trouble.
Yeah.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
I think it was a calculated strategy
Okay.
to make sure that they got the funding they needed. And if I tell you I'm not going to plow your roads, and I'm not going to do maintenance on them, and I'm not going to stripe them, it happened. People complained. And there was enough people complaining, they got what they needed.
So then they got the funding from the people they needed the funding from that they were short of.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
So yeah.
That's okay. Well, at least it was a win. So things have been restored, or they're a little less than what they were.
Oh no, they're as far as I can tell, we're at the same what they call it, same service level. So whatever we had the last couple years, we're going to have this year.
Well, and interesting that they came out with that email just like a month before winter begins or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yep. And Representative Levy she and her staff put together really, I thought, well-articulated letter. And I can't remember how many county commissioners and mayors from across this region signed and sent to ODOT and said, this isn't going to work for us, which is part of that pressure that was put on. So,
yeah. All righty. Well, okay.
But one of the things that happened very, very quickly once they got the funding secured is the Cove Highway, which got chip sealed last summer, now has a fog stripe on it. And again, a lot of folks from Cove wrote really good articulate letters to the people that make the decisions. And we had another person who has a transportation company write a letter. So I think it was a heavy lift by all of us to make sure we had the services we need to have safe transportation.
Good. So what else do you feel good about this year?
Oh gosh, I would like to say the long legislative session last winter and spring, but it was, as you remember, fairly tumultuous, but there were some really positive things that did come out of that. And the agri-stress hotline, I think I've talked about it before on here or not?
Remind us.
Okay, agri-stress hotline is Unfortunately, statistically speaking, the agriculture, natural resources, farming, ranching, farm work has a really high suicide rate. And so there is a specific number that you can call and get help from people that can relate to you or have similar backgrounds rather than a general national number. It's kind of a subset of the national number, and we can get folks the help they need for suicide prevention. And that was a lot of folks working on that. Commissioner Nash in Wallowa County, he was really the lead on that for the counties, and it's a really good, strong program that they've got. And I do have the number if you're interested.
Okay.
Off.
Yeah, we'll put it in the comments.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Got his handy.
Thank you, man.
You bet. Anyway, that I feel really good about that as part of the long session. We've got some really good negotiations that happen with what's called the landowner contribution for Oregon Department of Forestry. Again, in my view, and this is just from the seat that I work from, the governor had some very specific priorities: housing and homelessness, public education, and gosh, I just drew a blank on the last one. Mental health, sorry. And to me, it was as though if the state agencies didn't fall under one of those categories, they were really scrambling to figure out how they were going to balance their budget. And Oregon Department of Forestry, ODOT, just two examples of those that were really going to take some of that load and shift it to the local communities, which was troubling to me. And again, we just talked about ODOT, and then Oregon Department of Forestry, their leadership in Salem made some decisions that were going to really put a pretty heavy burden on the landowner, whereas from my view, that service that's provided that they're paying for really helps all Oregonians and not just the landowner. So again, Senator Steiner was she's co-chair of Ways and Means, which is really the money side of the purse strings of the legislature. And she met with us, we met in Ontario, gosh, probably a month and a half, 2 months ago, and said, hey, this is some of our concerns, this is why we're really worried about this. And she had put together a small committee to figure out a solution, and I think the one that they've got is going to be really workable, and be more than happy to share that too.
Cool. Awesome. All right. What else, man?
Just got back last week from the Oregon Business Plan Summit. Been going on for 21 years. 1,200 people in the Moda Center for a day of information on business in Oregon and how to promote business in Oregon and some of the really good things that are going. Fairly metro-centric. They talked a lot about the downtown, the work they're doing on the city center is what they're calling it in Portland, and literally investing millions and millions of state and local dollars into correcting some problems that have really gotten out of hand down there. But a lot more policing, a lot more mental health services, and what they're trying to do is get people off the streets and revitalize downtown. A couple of things they're doing is they're working on getting the plywood off the windows of the buildings that were, if you remember the riots of 2020, was that the summer of 2020?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like it all just blurs together, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. So they're working on getting that really downtown cleaned up. Boyle, who's president of Columbia Sportswear, has invested a lot of his own money, and he is what he calls self-proclaimed garbage king. He wants the garbage cleaned up, he wants the graffiti cleaned up, and he's got a coalition of business owners that's working to that end to get the city really cleaned up. Felt a little left out at that point in the conversation about what we need to do to improve things here in Eastern Oregon and in particular Union County. But the other thing that I was a little bit surprised about is Chair Vega Peterson from Multnomah County, Mayor Wheeler from Portland, and Governor Kotek, all three of them stood side by side, one right after another, saying that we need to make public use of drugs illegal in the state of Oregon again, which I thought was interesting when there's been this debate recently about reforming or rescinding ballot measure 110, the one that made drugs, decriminalized drugs. And I thought, man, that's a great step in the great first step in the right direction. Then I was visiting with somebody and they said, it's a smokescreen. Looks like they're doing something, but really, when you especially look at Union County, do you see a lot of drug use in public?
No.
Right.
No.
Certainly we have a problem, but it's not a public use problem.
No.
And they said, this looks like those folks are really, taking a hard stand doing something, but they're not helping us.
Yeah.
There is to a degree an amount of public drug use in other places, but that really I would suggest is the tip of the iceberg rather than the root of the problem.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you don't see people sitting at a bus stop in LeGrand hitting a crack
No.
pipe, but you might in Portland.
Well, and I didn't see them using. I saw the effects of a person using, which I had not seen before. And walking from the Moda Center back to my motel, someone was clearly
Zombied out.
just actually, hand on the ground,
Yeah.
holding themselves up, completely tipped over.
That's opiates, for sure.
Oh,
That's fentanyl.
yeah. And that's someone else that I trust and know said, that's clear sign of fentanyl use.
Absolutely.
So,
It's crazy. They look like they're just frozen, huh? They're just like...
yeah. I'm like, how do they breathe? I mean, bent over like that. And
Who knows?
Yeah.
So what part?
I never thought I'd get to a place where I would be walking by
Yeah.
people like that. And the other thing that I never thought I'd be is where I have Narcan in my vehicle, in my home, in my office.
Right.
And I have Narcan fairly close.
I have it in my backpack all the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and one of the discussions that I had, in relationship to 110 is because I really don't think there's going to be any major changes I don't think the legislature has the willpower to do it. I think it's probably going to need to go back to a vote of the people. But one of the things that I'm really hoping that comes out of this is treatment. And you're probably old enough, I'm not sure you are, but Coke had a philosophy or a corporate goal that anywhere in the world you could get a Coke. Remember that?
Right, yeah.
Yep. That is really kind of what I'd like to see in Oregon in particular for treatment. If you need treatment, we can get you into it.
Yeah.
It's not like, well, there's a 3-month wait and we'll get you into it as soon as we can.
Right.
Because we're losing people. They are dying while they're waiting to get into treatment, if they happen to choose that. But there's also some information that I read recently is that some of these folks, that their addiction and the effects of that addiction are so intense that they have lost capacity to make the decision. They always say you hit rock bottom.
Right.
They are to the point where unfortunately they're not going to be able to recognize rock bottom.
Right.
So it's clearly a problem, and I don't have a ton of solutions, but I would suggest that what we're doing right now is not doing anybody any favors.
Well, and that I hope that treatment comes out. I mean, we've talked about that. We had Chief Bell and Jason Hayes, Lieutenant Jason, the other day on the show, and it was a really great discussion about this whole topic. But my thing is like, I hope that treatment comes out of there, but as you know, treatment programs take years to build up. I mean, it just takes that infrastructure. It takes a long time, and certainly we have motivation to do that now. But in the meantime, you're right, people are dying.
Right.
I mean, literally, the lives are just clicking by.
Yep.
And there's two major strikes against us when it comes to treatment. First off, money. Money being the number one issue. And then in my eyes, the other big thing is people misuse treatment. A lot of people misuse treatment And I'm saying this from not only an outside but also an inside. I've been in treatment before for alcohol, and I saw people come in there that didn't need to be in there, that were there because they didn't have somewhere to live. And it happens quite often, especially during the cold time of year. And I don't know how they break through the cracks, but you see people in there and you're like, what are you doing here? You know what I mean? Like, what are you trying to do? You know, and so it becomes like one of those landing places, like they're called frequent flyers. It's people that have been in treatment 25, 30 times. You know what I mean? And they're just milking the system. It's kind of like somebody that milks welfare. And that takes up a bed from somebody that's out there dying, you know what I mean? Possibly dying from fentanyl or any other substance for that matter.
Yeah. Well, all right. So from the business part of that thing that you went to, were there any takeaways for us out of that you got?
Oh, most certainly. And that is really, this goes back to a fairly old strategy, and that is Oregon being, they called it the landmark of quality. And that is when you look at those flagship big corporations in Oregon, they really kind of put us on the map, whether it be Tillamook cheese for their high quality, Nike for their innovation, and Columbia Sportswear, and you look at Ore-Ida on the east side, and some of the agricultural products we've got here, Walshley, Hermiston Watermelon Company, those kinds of things where they really not only produced a product that people wanted, but it was of the highest quality as well, and that was something that went on there. And then also, as I was sitting there listening, and they had multiple panel discussions, a former LeGrand resident, I think he grew up here, Rob Stewart, was part of the discussion, and he's On Point Community Credit Union, and he had a lot of good things to say. The keynote speaker was a really great takeaway, and I've seen, between FFA and national conventions and state conventions, heard a lot of really good keynote speakers, and this one had a really interesting concept. Name is Derek Thompson. He's a writer. He's on National Public Radio for a number of things. He's got a podcast, and I'm drawing a blank on the name of it, but his premise was that as far as business go in the United States, we've had really 3 different ways about looking at the environment, and one is build at all cost. And we built railroads. We built a nation, really. And then we realized, wait a second, rivers shouldn't be on fire, and that was late 60s, early 70s when you saw the effects of all that building, unchecked building, and then we got into the regulation and preservation of it, and got to the point now it's very difficult to build anything because of all the regulatory things that are in place. And his suggestion was that we move to the next phase, which is we need to be able to build and create things and care for our environment without hamstringing ourselves in the process. We need to be able to do these things and move business forward, manufacturing forward, provide the goods and services to people rather than shipping it to another. Our problems or I think we've got probably stronger laws in many places that we could do it here and do it cleaner than somewhere else.
Yeah.
But really interesting keynote speaker.
Well, and I find that is the subtlety of the importance of manufacturing locally, whatever that might be, or bigger companies locally. It's difficult for the common person to really get their head around why that's important. I mean, maybe it provides them a job or whatever, but I mean, that is a subtlety that is harder for people to understand because they may or may not be able to relate. Now, if you're a businessman or a business operator, or if you're trying to operate a manufacturing company, then you have a keen understanding of the taxes that you pay and those, the cost of doing business and so on and so forth. But their employers, their employees, they don't have that same appreciation. They don't have that same understanding. But it's what makes the wheels go around. I mean, if you don't, degree, and Oregon has shot itself in the foot a lot. I mean, there are manufacturers that are moving out of Oregon just because it's too expensive to do business in Oregon.
Right.
So,
Or expanding places other than
or they
Oregon.
can do it cheaper. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But and part of what I really enjoy about going to these is the networking is what they call
Sure.
it now. I mean, visiting with people and being able to, after the sessions were over, they had the university colleges and universities all had booths set up and had the innovations in the programs they've got. Really great to see President Ryan and Tim Seidel there, the folks from the Rev Center. Grace Donovan was there talking about the things that are unique, especially to Eastern Oregon University and all the really good, strong programs they've got going on there. And then after that, there was the kind of Oregon-grown products, and I was able to visit with some folks, county commissioners from different parts of the state, which I always learn a lot of different things. You know, how are you dealing with this problem? Has this become an issue? Had a really good visit with one of the county commissioners from Lake County, who is the first certified, if I'm getting this correct, first certified carbon neutral county in the state. And they are producing more energy than they're consuming, and they're working on a lot more solar arrays and renewable, sustainable energy. That was a really good conversation. Learned a lot there. Had a good conversation with a couple of different legislators about what's coming up in the session, to include transportation. And also, the evening prior to the summit, I was able to go to former Commissioner Jayapal's kickoff for running for federal House of Representatives.
I was wondering why she stepped down. I didn't know that was the reason. I was going to ask you about that.
Yep. So their charter is such that if you are running for another office and you've got campaign income over $5,000, you're required to immediately give up your seat. And theirs is a little bit different. And I don't know that it was entirely her decision, but I know it was mostly her decision to name her successor.
Huh.
And I was able to meet him there and introduce myself to him. I don't think it's any secret that I was by far the most conservative person in that room.
Oh, obviously. Was that weird? Is that weird? Is it a weird thing?
It wasn't. I mean, part of it was a very celebratory event. I think you both know that I tend to be a back of the room kind of person.
Yeah.
When I first get there, and I was standing towards the back of the room, and former Commissioner Jayapal came in kind of a side back door, and she saw me and she said, "Oh my gosh, you came?" And I said, "Yes." And she goes, "For this?" And I said, "Well, I left much earlier than I would have to be here for this, but I said I have another meeting tomorrow." And she says, "I've got to get up there," but she goes, "Don't be surprised if I mention you in my speech." And I'm like, "Really?" And so they, during the introductions, the MC recognized that I had traveled the farthest to be there. And then in her speech kicking off her campaign, she talked about the things that she learned in Union County and how it was important to reach out to people that have differing views. And like I said, the people that engaged with me there were very friendly and curious to a large degree. About what my experiences were in Multnomah County and what some of my takeaways were from that experience that we had last summer.
Interesting. Yeah. So do you think people on the west side just don't even think about us? I mean, I'm talking about this general thing of they're making decisions that are not respective of us, whatever that might be, or do we even come to their mind? I mean, do they presume that all of Oregon is like what they're experiencing, or do they just? I mean, what do you think goes on in the mindset of somebody in leadership on that side of the state?
I would suggest that it's very, very individual.
Yeah.
I know I've used her name a couple of different times, but Senator Steiner, again, co-chair of Ways and Means, which is the purse strings for the state.
Yeah.
She's been in, and I don't know whether it's just because of the topics that she's picked up, or it's because of the meetings I happen to be in, but she was with, I talked about the Oregon Department of Forestry, Oregon Department of Transportation, and then the other one is we talked to her because she has a lot to do with the policy that comes out of the finances of the state. There is fairground funding, which I've been really advocating for fairly hard the entire time I've been in office. At one point, there was a 1% net of the lottery went to fairgrounds. And then that went on for a number of years. Fairgrounds really were improving, and they got to the point where they thought, whoa, we're giving fairgrounds way too much money. So they ended up capping it. And then that cap has been in place for a number of years and never changed. What we're advocating for is, because those fairgrounds are not necessarily 1 week in the summertime, but year round they're used, weddings, social events, concerts, and to a large degree, it's one of the very first go-to places for emergency management. Whether they be fire camps or when we had the outbreak of COVID, that's where we went for our testing.
Right.
And there was just no question that that's, was an available space. So, and it's relatively new. It's been around for a while, but it's gone through some iterations recently, and that's the Department of Emergency Management for the state of Oregon is now on its own. It was under the military department. And now they're off on their own, and we had a great meeting with the director the other day, and they really want to focus on and utilize fairgrounds as that go-to place and make sure that and they're going to advocate for that 1% to come to the fairgrounds all over the state, because there's 36 fairgrounds. Technically, Multnomah County doesn't have a county fairgrounds. They've got, oh gosh, I just drew a blank on the name, Park. That they use for their fairgrounds, but it's not a traditional fair like you would think. It's more of a carnival type setting. And then in Marion County, they share the state fairgrounds, Marion County and the state fairgrounds. So that's where we come up with a number. But that 1% could really get fairgrounds really across the state into much better shape to be able to utilize for those functions.
Now, does some of that, do they keep track of the lottery dollars that come out of Union County and we get a portion of that, or is it just?
It's a flat percentage of the net, and that would be 1%.
Yeah.
So to answer your question,
Yeah,
sorry,
I follow. Yeah.
Poor Dodsy's yawning. I'm
boring.
boring.
I'm not bored.
I can kind of go down I fairly often go down rabbit holes talking about things, and again, individuals. I mean, how often in your daily life do you think about what am I doing that's going to affect, and how's that going to affect the people that live in Portland or Salem or Eugene?
Right. Right. And you'd have to, if you were a governor or a state person making decisions, you would constantly have to be intentional about how is this decision how is it going to affect everybody?
Right. And to that point, and I will give, and we don't agree on many things, but I will give our governor really a lot of credit for going to every single one of the 36 counties her very first year in office, which started January-ish. So she's already completed it. Been to all 36 counties, and when she was here, we had good discussions. And I think, I'm not saying we moved the needle a long ways, but I think she probably understands Union County better than she did before she was here.
Well, and I think that is super important. If not, even if you don't change an opinion, you become aware. You show up out here. Bobby Levy tells a story of helping some of the people that she's had influence over understand the vastness of Eastern Oregon and how that relates to wolves. And when they get up in an airplane and they go like, oh, now I see why it's not really possible for you to defend your livestock, and so anyhow, but you just become aware.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, I just never knew, It's kind of like the first time you drop down into the Snake River Canyon or whatever it is. What's the little town out there on the other side of Joseph? You know, you go down and to the hole like you're going towards Snake River.
Imnaha?
Imnaha. First time you drive down into Imnaha, and then it's like, it's so vast.
That vast was the word that I was going to use
Yeah.
to describe it. Yeah, that's a big chunk of real estate out there.
Yeah.
That, yeah.
Yeah, and you so anyhow, it's just, you can't really understand that until you get there.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, anything else before we wrap up?
Thank you for having me on. Merry Christmas to both of you.
Yeah.
Hope your New Year is good. And I know I say it fairly often on this show, but I love my job. And if folks have concerns or want to get a hold of me, it's 541-963-1001. And the AgriStress, I can't promote that nearly enough. And I'm just thankful for the community I live in and the healthcare we've got, the people that live here, and I think I'm a very fortunate person.
Good. Well, I've said this often, but we're glad to have you. Glad to have you representing us, and I like you guys. I like the mix that the three of you represent. So thanks very much.
We complement each other very well.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yep, agreed.
Well, you want to get us out of here?
Yeah, but before I do, tomorrow, 5:30, Keeping It Clear with Cody Bowen. We're having special guest Mayor Rock, and we're going to talk about just some of the, stuff between county and city. But we also all three went to school together. We're almost all the same age, and we've known each other for a long time, so it should be an interesting show.
A wild ride.
Yeah, two people that you would have never thought would be the sheriff and the mayor.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And taught to strip footballs.
Sorry. Oh boy, Paul. And I'll have a video for you on Thursday too. Anyways, on this day, 1843. Today is December 19th. 1843. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens is published. 6,000 copies were sold. On this day in 1917, the first NHL game, National Hockey League game, ever played on artificial ice in Toronto. So they always played on ponds. But they actually played on artificial ice for the first time 6 years ago. 106 years they've been playing on artificial ice. 1998, on this day, U.S. House of Representatives votes to impeach President Bill Clinton over the Lewinsky scandal, following the articles of impeachment to the Senate for a trial. That was crazy. That whole thing with Bill. I liked Bill.
Yeah, what year was that?
That was 1998.
98. Okay.
Yeah, my year after I graduated high school. Yeah. I didn't mind Bill Clinton. I thought he obviously made some bad decisions, but he wasn't a horrible president.
He was a Rhodes Scholar. Very sharp guy.
Didn't him and Hillary meet at Harvard?
Yeah, I don't know.
Ivy League. He's an Ivy League dude for sure.
No, he's an intelligent dude.
2018, on this day, the first use of drones to deliver vaccines. The island of Erromango, Vanuatu, by UNICEF. So they use drones to deliver vaccines. I don't know what kind of vaccines, but we were talking about the first drone delivery was in 2016 by Amazon. Well, they finally started using it for something a little more, more pertinent. Delivering vaccines to remote places. I'm sure it's hard to get stuff to some of these places. I don't know exactly where that island is, but it's probably somewhere that's not easy to access, I would imagine. 2019, on this day, earliest fossilized trees, 386 million years old, are found at a quarry in Cairo, New York. Study published in Current Biology. 386 million year old fossilized trees. That's a long time. If we think about how long we're alive compared to that number.
Yeah.
My goodness.
A blink.
Number one song in America on this day in 1983. Say, Say, Say by Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson. That's why I was listening to Michael Jackson this morning.
I heard you listening. Yeah, it was like he one of the. You were playing out of My Life. Is that what it is? Yeah, that ballad. And it's like, man, what is that coming out of his speaker?
I like Michael Jackson. Quote of the day comes from Samuel Bennett. If you don't know where you are currently standing, you're dead. One more time. If you don't know where you're currently standing, you're dead. Samuel Beckett.
All righty.
That's it. Tomorrow, 5:30. Keeping it clear with Cody Bowen.
Live right here.
Right here.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Paul.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Merry
appreciate
Christmas.
it. We'll see you guys soon.